One of the reasons why it took me so long to learn how to forgive is because I totally misunderstood what forgiveness was. I used to think it was for the other person. Because in movies or TV shows, when someone does something wrong to the other person, they go to them after asking for forgiveness. Well, I used to think that that's what it was. But then I came to realize that it doesn't really matter if the other person knows whether or not you forgive them. Although I'm sure it would ease some of their own guilt. Because what I've come to realize through my journey of forgiveness is that it's actually for us. It's to be able to let go of all the negative emotions like anger and resentment about the situation and to be able to move forward with our life with more peace and freedom. So a really long time ago, my ex-boyfriend at the time had messaged me. It had already been a couple of months since we had last broken up. And to be honest, that was probably the longest time we had been broken up for because we were constantly fighting and were always on and off. Our relationship was totally dysfunctional and unhealthy, and it lasted a lot longer than it really should have. But then he started telling me that he missed me and that he wanted to get back together. At that point, I honestly had no intention of getting back together, but I wanted to test him. I wanted to know how honest he would be, so I told him that I would only consider it if he would give me the list of names of all the girls he lied to me about, and he surprisingly agreed. But then he only gave me one name, which ended up being one of my best friends. I was pretty devastated and totally caught off guard. And what totally sucked about this relationship was that I found out about all the lies only after our final breakup because during the whole relationship, there was no trust, there were lots of lies, but I had no real proof of anything. So to learn about him and one of my best friends, way after the fact, really added salt to the wound. So after some time for the sake of our group of friends, I told my best friend that I was willing to keep things civil with her, so our other friends wouldn't have to feel uncomfortable about the whole situation. But I was totally naive and wanted to be the so-called bigger person about it. But deep down, I still hadn't gotten over it. I had so much resentment and anger about it. I thought that because logically I was not going to get back together with my ex-boyfriend, I already knew it was such an unhealthy relationship and that it was time to move on, so I wasn't going to let him get in the way of our friendship, right? I thought that our years of friendship could overcome this challenge. But the decision I made to forgive on a logical level didn't match up to what was going on emotionally inside of me. I had to learn that forgiveness can take time because it is a process. And I actually needed more time to process it all on an emotional level. So just remember to give yourself the space and time to deal with whatever it is you need to deal with, and don't feel rushed to forgive. It took me a while, but I learned you can also accept something and have preferences and boundaries around it, and that by accepting a situation doesn't mean that you're saying that it's okay what they did or that you condone it. I mean, you definitely don't have to like it. But it doesn't mean that you can't accept what happened. And forgiveness is about having peaceful acceptance of a situation, of what happened, whether or not you like it or even agree with it. I had to learn to accept that my ex-boyfriend cheated on me with one of my best friends, but that it's also okay not to like being cheated on with one of my best friends. Not liking something doesn't have to have all the negative emotions around it. It can actually be a neutral preference, and it can become a matter of fact rather than an emotionalized story. So reflecting back on my own mistakes that I've made throughout my life, there are definitely many that I deeply regret and wish I hadn't done. But I've also come to see that they were truly mistakes. I really didn't know any better at the time and had a lack of better judgment. But I've learned to forgive myself for those mistakes because I really do see that it was out of being unconscious, of lacking the awareness to do better in the moment. And I truly believe that when we can forgive ourselves for our own mistakes, only then can we truly forgive others. Because I understand what it's like to make mistakes. I can extend that understanding out now to my ex-boyfriend and best friend. At the beginning, I took all of this personally and went down a deep, dark spiral about it. I thought that because I wasn't good enough, that's why he cheated on me. And I remember thinking to myself so many times, how could one of my best friends of all people do this to me? I just took it all way too personally. But having a deeper understanding of the mistakes I've made in my life, I knew that it was nothing personal to any of the people that I made the mistakes with. Not at all. It really was just a bunch of poor decisions because I lacked awareness in the moment and was only thinking about myself. And that's how I choose to see the scenario and how I've learned to not take it personally. So, of course, I did not end up getting back together with my ex-boyfriend. And after I confronted my best friend, she eventually moved away out of town and we slowly grew apart. Years had actually passed and my best friend and I randomly bumped into each other again and made plans to get together. It was really nice to see her and spend time together again, but it made me realize how much we grew apart, and I also feel like we grew apart for other reasons beyond what happened. So it felt like this friendship had run its course. I also realized that forgiveness doesn't mean that things have to go back to the way they were. So even though we are no longer friends, I do appreciate the friendship we had because I did enjoy the good times we had together. And the negative experience at the end taught me so much about myself and especially about forgiveness. So I am so grateful that I was able to learn to fully forgive so I can be at peace with it now.